3 years ago, I stood in front of these 3 letters for the very first time. I had just been in Tunis for over a year, and I can assure you, I am just as nervous now as I was then. I had decided to leave the States and move to Tunisia, the place my ancestors call home. As a New Yorker, I can tell you, it is not always easy to imagine a world outside of the city. However, in the last 4 years, I have reaffirmed my Mediterranean identity, traded hot sauce for harissa, and freezing winters for warm Tunisian beaches. I will, of course, never trade a New York slice of pizza for anything, but that's another story. It was an amazing time to move to Tunisia. Back then, Tunisians had just overthrown their dictator, sparking revolutions across the region, now referred to as the Arab Spring. Since the fall of the dictatorship, Tunisians across the country have aspired to find their place in the new Tunisia, one characterized by a cautious openness, but one also full of unique opportunities. For me, my place has been working to support entrepreneurs. While I was preparing for this talk, the same questions kept coming to mind. What have I learned about my roots? How has the local climate for innovation and entrepreneurship changed since the Arab Spring? And what does this mean for the future of Tunisia, the heart of the Mediterranean, and arguably the only beacon of hope in the Arab world? These are the questions I would like to explore with you today. To start off with, I learned that Carthage, the place that I now call home, was the capital of a veritable superpower of the ancient world. The Carthaginian Empire spawned a formidable navy at the crossroads of complex trade networks. The most important commercial and maritime hub by the 5th century BC, Carthage was a cosmopolitan hotspot known for its diversity and richness of culture. It was an advanced civilization ahead of its time, characterized by engineering ingenuity, the first ever modern cistern system, and one of the greatest military geniuses in history, Hannibal. Hannibal challenged traditional models of warfare and redefined the way we engage in battle. This is not to idealize, but to contextualize, to remind us of the things that we tend to forget. I also learned that Tunisia's splendor spilled into the modern era. After 75 years of colonization by the French, an influential and charismatic leader named Habib Bourguiba led Tunisia to independence and set his country on a path to modernity and economic development. Contrary to the cliches of sun, sand, beach, and cheap vacations, by the 1960s and 70s, Tunisia was ahead of the curve. The first country in the Arab world to grant women the right to vote, equal education for men and women, a modern universal healthcare system, and an emphasis on educational exchanges. But somewhere along the line, we lost touch with this proud Carthaginian heritage and this dedication to modernity. We traded our glory days of innovation for centuries of invasions and colonization and ended up with decades of dictatorship. For the first time in ages, things are changing. Tunisia has embarked on a mission to redefine itself as a startup democracy. This is a term that we use to encompass how fragile our transition is, but also our dedication to rebuild a culture where creativity and the entrepreneurial spirit can thrive again. I am here because I truly believe that we are now, right now, facing a once-in-a-lifetime chance, a singular moment in history to reclaim our identity. And we are certainly not going to let the acts of a few soulless terrorists take that away from us. Someone once told me that nothing kills innovation like dictatorship. But as the legacy of repression starts to wear off and access to information becomes easier, entrepreneurship is emerging as a viable career path for many young Tunisians who are willing to take the risk. The uprisings in 2011 were sparked by a deep economic malaise and severe unemployment among youth. And entrepreneurship was quickly pegged as one of the most dynamic approaches to socioeconomic recovery by regional and international decision makers alike. As a result, the number of new initiatives created to encourage entrepreneurship in Tunisia has exploded. In the short time I have been there, I have watched the entrepreneurial ecosystem evolve from just a handful of actors to a multitude of stakeholders, especially coming from universities, leadership from the private sector, and a revived civil society. In the absence of a strong state, these players are stepping up to the plate. Co-working spaces, incubators, training, coaching, mentorship initiatives, startup competitions have all sprung up across the country. Today, we can count 3 co-working spaces, 6 incubators, and hundreds of nonprofit initiatives, literally hundreds, working to make sure that the entrepreneurship experiment is a success. This does not even include the number of international donors, institutions, venture capital firms, and accelerator networks that are beginning to take an interest in Tunisian startups and even invest in their potential. The Tunisians who are spearheading these initiatives are breaking from a culture of passivity and crony capitalism and setting an example as initiators, risk takers, and innovators, building the ecosystem from the ground up. One such person, Hossein Aoudi, for example, the founder of TEDx Carthage, now in its 5th year, was also the founder of the first co-working space in Tunisia. But most importantly, he is creating a culture for entrepreneurs, a culture that transforms ideas into actions. This is key in the land of inshallah, for those of you who know what I mean. It's worth mentioning here that Tunisia's growth in entrepreneurship coincides with a global turning point where an internet connection and a mobile phone or a computer can build a company. It is easier to innovate than ever before, and millennials' appetite for risk outweighs the generations before them. In Tunisia, this is the same generation that took to the streets demanding change and opportunity, using platforms like Facebook and Twitter to mobilize the masses. We are living in an age of hyperconnectivity and unprecedented access to information. Nowhere is the impact of this more visible than in the technology sector. From crowdfunding to cloud computing, mobile applications to hardware inventions, tech startups have the potential to put Tunisia on the map for innovation worldwide. And I have the privilege of working with such startups every day at the Microsoft Innovation Center. One startup, Saffron Energy, flies the Tunisian flag high. Named after the Carthaginian god of wind, Saffron, their creation is bladeless, rotationless, patented in 70 countries, and will single-handedly redefine the way we capture and exploit wind energy. It is 100% Tunisian. Hannibal would have been proud. We're also seeing the impact of technology to promote transparency and civic participation. Fitting to its name, al-bawsala, the Arabic word for compass, they are connecting citizens to governments through technology by providing them with access to real-time information about their elected representatives, the good and the bad. Through a new mobile app, they are empowering citizens to participate in local decision-making with just the swipe of a finger. Our ability to embrace these new opportunities and to empower the next generation of entrepreneurs depends on our capacity to innovate again. Tax ratings, credit ratings, investment codes, labor codes, these do not make for catchy headlines. However, in order for our ecosystem to truly succeed, we have to invest in a lean and performant regulatory regime that is conducive to innovation. I really like the title of this most recent World Bank report because it captures that without such economic reforms, we will struggle to consolidate the gains of our political revolution. Innovation also means laying the right foundation. One thing we can do right now is open up our market to attract global entrepreneurs. Immigration, both bringing the Tunisian diaspora back and attracting new immigrants, is going to be a critical factor in our success. Did you know that 24 of the top 50 venture-backed companies in the US have at least one foreign-born founder? 40% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by an immigrant or the child of an immigrant. Countries like Chile, Canada, New Zealand are even issuing startup visas to compete over global entrepreneurial talent. Just because we're trying to build a new Tunisia for Tunisians doesn't mean we have to do it alone. After all, we were a land of immigrants. Carthaginians were Phoenicians who settled in North Africa from Lebanon. Up until the early 1900s, 3% of our population was Italian. Even during French colonial rule, the Italian population in Tunisia outnumbered the French. But today, our market is confined, our diversity is limited, and our exposure is minimal. This means that it's just as difficult for Tunisians to get their ideas out to new markets as it is for new ideas to come in. We have to open up and rebuild the Mediterranean melting pot that we once were. My father was born in a small town on the Tunisian coast. I'm very lucky that trade routes brought him to the US. And I'm even luckier that new trade routes brought me back to Tunisia. We are explorers. We are innovators. It is in our Carthaginian DNA. So today, as we stand at this new crossroads, let us seize this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity and make of Tunisia the new Carthage. Thank you.